Hello, and welcome back again to Chapter 9 of my book, Look in the Shadows. This chapter is called The Rebuilding Begins. When change comes, there is often more than one factor that comes into play. As I was trying to implement some sort of action in relation to what I felt that God had spoken to me about, that is, in trying to help people less fortunate, I was also out taking the first steps in trying to find a job. It is not easy to do this when you have been out of the workforce for a very long time, especially when you're an older woman. Sure, I had qualifications from university, but they were now 40 years out of date, and it had been 30 years since I'd had a real job. Who would employ someone like me? The chances were not high. I didn't want to go back into my old profession of being a food technologist, as my scientific knowledge was really now quite out of date. And frankly, I would need serious retraining to be of any value in that field. In addition to that, we lived on the northern beaches of Sydney, and all of the food companies in Sydney were located out in the western suburbs. I did not want to travel for 2 hours each way every day to go to and from work. So I had to find something more local. I thought that I would go down to the local shopping centre and see if anybody wanted a shop assistant. I dropped into lots of shops, but no one was interested. Then I thought maybe I could pack shelves in a supermarket. No qualifications or experience are required for that. I was prepared to do anything, even sell shoes if I had to, so that I could get back into the working environment. I needed something to do. My life at home had nothing in it to fulfill me, and my horses were not really going anywhere, as my daughter was no longer riding seriously, and I had trouble keeping them in work on my own. So I prepared a resume and put it on the Woolworths website. Woolworths is the largest supermarket chain in Australia, and they have many stores spread all over the country. In addition to that, most of my children had been employed at some stage in Woolworths, and some of them were still working there. Well, much to my surprise, a day or so later, I received a phone call. They were asking if I could work at night. I considered it for a moment and then thought I can't really see any reason why not, and so I said yes. Then they asked me to come in for an interview. At the interview, they said that they needed a duty manager. That is someone who manages the store in the evenings. Woolworths stores usually stay open till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Some even stay open till midnight. And the day managers go home around 5 or 6 p.m. So someone has to manage the store after they go home and lock up at the end of the day when all is done. They wanted me to start the next week. I agreed, even though I had no retail experience whatsoever. I was quite shocked that they wanted me, but I wasn't going to knock back the opportunity. It was a store in a suburb that I considered was out the back of nowhere. It was about half an hour drive away from where I lived, amongst the houses up in the hills behind the beaches where I was located. It was an area that I'd really not had anything to do with. It was called Belrose. The next week, I worked 4 nights with the assistant store manager, who showed me all of the various ins and outs of the store, how to close up, how to operate the alarm system, how to count the cash at the end of the day, open and close the safe, and they gave me the keys for the next night for me to do my first shift on my own. Well, I was terrified. It had all happened so quickly. I had no idea what I was doing. They had told me that the reason they employed me was because I had been in the Army Reserve, and that they thought that I would be able to pull the young people into line. It seemed maybe they had a problem in that area. However, I decided to just keep my head down and make no waves. Just do what I could and hope for the best. I had gone out looking for a job, maybe selling shoes or doing some other menial task. I never anticipated that I would be put in charge of a supermarket. Early evenings is the busiest period of the day, and I would be managing the store during that time on my own with no retail experience. It seemed absolutely crazy. Part of my job was also to come out in the middle of the night if any alarms would go off. And this would sometimes happen as often 3 times a week, as the old refrigeration units in the store would often break down, and I'd have to come out and call technicians to come and repair them. But somehow I fumbled my way through the first few weeks, and then through the following months, and through the next year. It took a whole year before I had the courage to start to really take control of what was happening in the store. Before that, I was too scared to say anything or do anything to anyone. I certainly didn't try to pull the young ones into line. I needed them to show me how to do things. But after a year, I started to use more authority, and I was to stay in that job for the next 5 years. It was the most important time of my life. It was when I started to be rebuilt. It was when my confidence started to come back. It was when the person that I truly was would start to be reconstructed from the shell that I had become. Being a manager rebuilt my confidence. It gave me the skills that I would need when the next changes would come into my life. But there was something else that job did for me, something that would be vitally important, something that would open the doors for God to bring about His purpose in my life. And that I will discuss in the next chapter. I hope you come back when I release it. Bye for now.